There may be some hope ahead for those of you, if you're one of the 1 in 10, nearly 1 in 10 Americans who is on insulin for diabetes. But there's more to the story. And to help us sort it all out is Paul Seegert, managing partner at PCS Advisors. I always get that mixed up. PCS Advisors, health consulting firm and expert on health benefits. How you doing, Paul? Thanks for being with me.
Doing great. How are you today?
I am good. So, of course, the Democrats ballyhooed what they touted as this great bipartisan bill. They passed it last Thursday in the House, and it's called the Pay Affordable Insulin Now Act, a bill that caps insulin copays at $35 a month. And the hope is that it will help people afford insulin. And it has gone up meteorically, but I think that, as you pointed out in some promotional material I saw, that's really overplaying exactly what this would do, and it's really addressing the wrong end of the equation. First of all, what does the bill propose to do, and who would it benefit?
Well, I think it benefits the best beneficiary. The biggest beneficiary is politicians who get to do a nice press event as if they did something with great impact, when they really didn't do something with great impact in terms of how it's going to impact the overall system and fix a big problem. It's such a great case study in how we talk about healthcare, the way we pay for healthcare, and never really fix it because of all the special interests and money that goes to politicians. All we're talking about is capping the copay, and we're leaving unspoken about the fact that we pay wildly more than the rest of the world for this thing, for this product, and lots of other drugs too. And 60% of the cost of insulin is waste in our system. We're leaving the waste untouched so that these middle players, who most Americans have never heard of, can continue to inflate the cost. We're going to reduce the copay so that it appears to the American consumer that something good was done, because now my copay is maxed at $35. Can't go above $35, when 75% of Americans are already paying less than that anyway in their copay for this product. But the challenge I see is what we're basically doing is telling insurers, you take on more share of cost so that we can look, if I'm a congressperson, insurers, you're going to have to cover more of the bill so that I can look good to the consumer and lower their copay. But don't worry, I know you're probably just going to bake it into next year's renewal and increase their overall rates for their insurance. That's the chain of events that we can expect to see.
That's right. And you have accurately highlighted what you and I know is a dirty little and fairly well-kept secret, except for those of us that are in the medical industrial complex. I say that with a great deal of guilt, because I'm a part of a system I can't change. I'm desperately trying to. People will hear that more and more as they listen to this program, and you and I will be talking more and more about a better way to do things. I am working on that as we speak. We'll unveil it when it's ready for prime time. But part of it is the middleman. And the middleman, actually middlemen, pharmacy benefit companies, and the insurers are the ones that are, and the big pharma, frankly, too. They're all making out like bandits on this thing, instead of what should be happening. Why are prices so high? Why have prices risen so much since the mid-2000s? Way out of proportion to any other product, and way out of proportion for insulin and many other drugs. Out of proportion to the always high medical inflation index.
Yeah, I mean, medical inflation is twice 2 to 2.5x the rest of the economy, and now we're running at 11.9%. The last I checked it, in the cost of healthcare, which no doubt will impact the cost of insurance. Don't let an insurance company have an excuse to give an increase, or they will. Shoot, they'll find one if they don't have one. So this is not good news for all of us. And costs have risen because we don't have free market forces working in this part of our economy. It's a huge sector of our economy, and we don't have free market forces. The fact that you don't know, we've trained consumers, and this insulin case is a perfect example of how we've done this. We've taken the American consumer, this powerful consuming force, and we've hobbled them by only giving them access to their share of cost, and then we've taken their share of cost and disconnected it from the actual cost or any real relation to the cost of care and what insurers are going to pay and providers are going to charge and all these things that go on. And drugs is a great example. We've watched pharmacy benefit managers who the average American doesn't even know they exist, who were originally intended to come in as an advocate for health plans and health plan sponsors because it's so complicated. How could a normal person who's busy running a manufacturing facility but also has a significant healthcare business by default because he or she's an employer providing healthcare, how could they navigate this complex system? So let's get them a pharmacy benefit manager to get them better value. And then let's not monitor them, require transparency or anything else that would, lead to free market forces. Let's let them pretty much manage themselves. And then you watch this market evolve, and the Affordable Care Act just magnified all of this. And we could have a whole nother rabbit hole discussion on that and the hows and the whys. But it basically went from where they would provide this service of managing formularies for health plans for $1 each time a drug was dispensed until fast forward to today, and they're adding 30, 40, 50, 60% to the cost of lots of prescriptions in all the various fees they've created. Rolling 24 months look back, they've increased their admin fees by 49% because some employers have started to realize there's a thing called rebates. And they're saying, well, I want some of those rebates back. They say, sure, you can have some rebates and we'll just puff up this other fee over here to keep our revenues the same and increase your overall price. It's really
so the guy, so the pharmacist, to say it another way, I think, Paul, what I'm hearing is, and what I believe, is that the guy that was the pharmacy benefit manager companies that were originally hired to be on the side of employers to make sure that they could get affordable, the best deals from the wholesalers that get the drugs, turned into big profit centers because they're double dipping. They're charging the employer, they're charging the insurance company for their administrative services and big air finger quotes negotiating tactics. And in the other hand, they got a conflict of interest because they're steering products to those consumers because they're getting rebates, favorable rebates. Absolutely. When they steer a product, right? I'm not. That's corruption. Right. That's corruption.
It shouldn't be allowed. It should be considered corruption, and yet it's considered the way we do business. And insulin's a perfect example of everything you just described. Eli Lilly makes Humalog. It's the most commonly prescribed in America right now. I'm going to say a monthly cost is around $550 a month to a health plan. $330 of it is added by this pharmacy benefit manager who, in the transaction, who is supposed to be there to advocate for more value. You clearly have to admit we're off track, and not by a little, when they're 330 of the 550. And to make it even more dramatically ironic, Eli Lilly has their own generic of that drug that costs significantly less. And most of these pharmacy benefit managers get to pick which drugs are on the formulary, so you don't have access to it. And Eli Lilly would actually make more money selling the generic than they do selling the brand because it doesn't have those rebates and all that waste built into it. And yet they don't really get to because the pharmacy benefit manager can say, no, we're not going to put that on the list. So it's not one of the options that members of our health plans will have.
So they're self-dealing, and they in the way they deal with formularies because a lot of their profit and their profit center comes from rebates. And there are people now that are managing the managers and keeping an eye on them, super sleuths, but that's another layer of cost that employers and insurers have to pay, brokers that help the employers try to find affordable insurance. And that's another level of expense someone's got to pay for it. Some of that eventually gets passed along in premiums, if not copays. So it's a sad thing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a problem that needs to be solved because too many Americans with diabetes are going without their insulin, running miserably high blood sugars, getting amputations, ulcers, kidney failure, eye disease, early heart attacks, and it's got to stop, and we've got to get the corruption. It's legalized corruption. I'm sorry, there's no other way to look at it. And Paul, we should say too that Merck, for instance, that manufactures drugs, they have their own pharmacy benefit management company. Talk about Peter paying Peter.
And look at it. And this is how powerful the pharmacy part of our business has become, that you have CVS Caremark by Aetna, really. I mean, they got their insurer, so now they've got, talk about vertical integration. It's not just McDonald's that owns the cow all the way to the burger in your mouth. They're doing it with the drugs. And it's a huge storm cloud on the horizon, not just for health plans and the economics of a health plan, and not just for health care as a sector of our economy, but for I think our entire economy. This is what we should be talking about the most. We should be screaming it from the rooftops that there's no way this should be allowed. And the rebates are just one of the problems. The fact that you can't, a couple others, people ask me, what's 3 things we could do? End rebates would be one. That would drop the price of insulin by 60%. Then we need to get fair cash pricing. How is it possible? It gets back to free market forces not really existing. If you're a pharmacy, corner pharmacy, national chain, and you take insurance, you don't get to determine your own cash price on the drug. They dictate it to you. Or you won't be in their pharmacy network. And so that impacts the cost of drugs massively as well. You've got an example that I use a lot. Montelukast is a generic for Singulair. If you go into a pharmacy and say, hey, what if I pay cash even though I have insurance? They have to tell you because of their contract, oh, it's $400 for a 90-day supply. But since you have insurance, you can get it for $25. When the few and far between real cash-only pharmacies that don't take insurance so that they don't have to have those rates dictated to them can make profit selling you that same drug at $34.50 for an entire year. That shouldn't be allowed either.
And we should mention here in mid-Missouri that if you happen to see a doctor and get a prescription from a doctor that is employed by or works at a critical access hospital, an FQHC, a safety net institution, many of them have what are called 340B plans. 340B. And for people who are distressed and qualify, you have to qualify in most cases, you can get medicines at ridiculously cheap prices. But you have to qualify and be a patient of one of those docs. So there's some priorities that need to be met and some conditions.
Sure.
So there's a lot to this, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to continue to listen when we talk to Paul. We'll preview it when he's going to be on. You can learn more about him. If you're an insurer, if you're an employer, if you're interested in learning more too, you can always get in touch with Paul at paul.seegert at pcsadvisors.com because he knows a lot about this industry and a lot of you have uncovered, you are like the super sleuth. You're the Woodward and Bernstein of health benefits. You know that? That's good.
Well, that's what we're doing. We get up every day to fight this fight, and it needs.
All right, and we're going to keep fighting it. And Paul, we're going to talk offline real soon here about some ideas I have, and we're going to try to unleash it here in mid-Missouri as soon as we can. We're working on something. So,
let's do it. Love to help if I can.
All righty. All right. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Have a good day.
There he is, Paul.